The sound of her heels on the marble living room floor echoed like gunshots. Rachel stood in the doorway of our penthouse, draped in a crimson silk robe bought with my money, wearing the smug smile I used to think was sexy. She looked me in the eyes and dropped the bomb, calling me a pathetic, foolish husband who could not breathe without her. She asked if I was going to stay and beg like a dog or leave like a man. What she did not know was that I signed her credit card bills. She did not know I was the CEO of the very company where her new fling worked. She assumed I was a mid-level drone who lucked into a decent paycheck. For months, I played the quiet husband while the rot set in, letting her believe I was too weak to fight back. I did not yell or cry. I just said okay and walked out. She did not follow. Seconds later, I heard her whisper on the phone, telling him I took the bait and to come over. I checked into a hotel, downed whiskey, and stared at the ceiling until morning. At 8:14 a.m., her name lit up my phone. I let it ring 5 times before answering. Her voice was trembling, begging me to call her back, admitting she did not know I was the boss. I hung up without a word. 2 days before she threw me out, the signs became impossible to ignore. Her phone was locked on silent, turned away whenever I walked by. She worked late at a job without overtime, returned smelling of foreign cologne, and rushed straight to the shower. I hired an ex-military investigator to dig. The photos and videos he delivered almost made me crush my phone. She was wrapped around a slick finance guy named Chase at a private downtown club. Worse, they were using the back seat of the Escalade I bought her as a gift. She looked alive, happy, and vibrant with him, a version of her I had not seen in years. I buried the chest-burning rage and waited for her to push the boundary off the cliff. She thought she was kicking me out, unaware the lease was in my name, and her maxed-out credit cards were tied to my business accounts. I arrived at the office the next morning, looking like a man with nothing left to lose. No tie, top button undone, dark glasses hiding bloodshot eyes. I bypassed my office and went straight to the 28th floor. Chase sat at his desk, smirking at his phone, with the same brainless grin from the videos. 5 minutes later, I called an emergency HR meeting, presented the conduct violations, and had him quietly fired. By noon, he was carrying his belongings out in a cardboard box, sweating in total confusion. Meanwhile, Rachel blew up my phone with 23 missed calls and 9 frantic texts, realizing I owned the building. I let her stew until sunset before sending a single message, dinner at 9 p.m., at the place we first met. She showed up in a low-cut dress, red lips, and high heels, trying to use the same leverage she used on Chase. The moment she sat down and tried to stammer an excuse, I cut through the act and told her I saw the videos, the club, the Escalade, everything. Her face fell, then hardened into spite. She claimed I would never find anyone better, and mocked my chances of finding love again. I looked at her calmly, and said I did not need better. I just needed not her. I walked away, leaving her with the ashes of our marriage. I drove aimlessly through the city lights, pulling over near the lake to breathe in the cold air. All those years of sacrifice had been given to a woman playing a character. I moved into an apartment I had quietly purchased months ago under my own name. Deep down, a part of me must have known this day would come. The next morning, she was waiting outside my office building, pale, unkempt, and banging on my car window. I ignored her and instructed my assistant to block all her calls. That evening, she used her key to break into my old apartment. She waited in the dark, red-eyed with mascara running, holding a glass of wine that she smashed against the wall. She screamed that I ruined Chase, calling me nothing without her. I looked her in the eye and told her she had sucked the life out of me, and now she was just angry I survived. I gathered a few remaining personal items ignored her desperate pleas for a second chance, and shut the door behind me. Days later, she ambushed me during a dinner with high-profile clients, creating a loud scene and screaming about betrayal. I refused security intervention, letting everyone see the unhinged reality of who she was. That night, she texted a white flag, begging me not to ruin her further. I left it unread. A week of silence followed, but the stillness felt heavy. Then came a delivery to my desk, an envelope containing old photos of us from happier times, captioned with a guilty prompt written in red ink. We could have had everything. When she tried to force her way up to my office, I refused the visitor request. That night, she ambushed me again in the underground parking garage, leaning against my car door. She demanded to know if the divorce was real, brushing off Chase as a meaningless distraction while I was playing average. When she realized I was completely unaffected by her excuses, her hand flew out in a knee-jerk attempt to slap me. I did not flinch. I told her that if she ever stepped near me again, I would file a restraining order. The heels of her shoes echoed into the dark as she retreated. 2 weeks passed in quiet routine. I worked out, cooked my own meals, and began to sleep through the night. Then my assistant walked into my office holding a phone. A gossip blog had published leaked elevator footage of Rachel and Chase making out, recorded months prior, right before his termination. She had leaked it herself for attention and spite. I called my legal team immediately to push the divorce filings forward without delay. That weekend, I returned home to find her sitting on my apartment floor in the dark with a half-empty bottle of vodka, having used a spare key I forgot to revoke. Before I could dial the police, she scrambled up and blurted out that she was pregnant. My hand froze. She claimed it was mine, from a weekend we reconnected, right before the fallout. I remembered that weekend clearly, the lingerie, the sweet words, and I also remembered her being with Chase 3 days later. I told her coldly that if it was true, we would address it with lawyers and medical tests, not surprise visits in my living room. I changed the locks that night and scheduled a paternity test for the following week. The clinic was cold and silent. We sat through the process without exchanging a word. 5 days later, the call came while I was looking out at the city skyline. The nurse confirmed I was not the biological father. I hung up with a clear mind. The final layer of manipulation had collapsed. She had tried to leverage an unborn child to keep a leash on me. I updated the legal strategy: full divorce, zero alimony, no asset split. When she tried to crash my office building again, security turned her away at the glass doors while she screamed at the street. 2 nights later, an envelope was slipped under my door containing a sonogram and a note claiming the clinic made a mistake and that she had lost the baby. I double-checked with the facility in writing. The records were absolute. It was another manufactured crisis, designed to drag me back into her orbit. 3 months passed. The divorce was finalized uncontested, supported by documented evidence of her actions and false claims. The quiet returned. Friends eventually convinced me to step back into social settings. I met a woman named Haley, warm, grounded, and straightforward. We talked for hours about simple things, without the weight of mind games or performance. Months after the court finalization, a handwritten letter appeared at my door. Rachel wrote that she never expected me to leave, that she kept pushing to find my breaking point, and that she had failed where I had stayed true. She offered no excuses, just a late admission of what she threw away. I read it, folded the paper, and dropped it into a public trash can. Betrayal burns everything down, but what rises from the ash is sharper and stronger. 6 months after walking out of that penthouse, I sat at a sidewalk cafe, drinking black coffee in peace, watching the city move. My phone buzzed with a simple text from Haley, asking about dinner plans, and I replied immediately, The scars remained, but the weakness was gone. Betrayal did not break me. It simply revealed who never deserved a place in my life.